The Chronicles of Hughe and the Card Game. Chapter 1. Hugh's morning began like any other. An instantly blaring alarm jolting him awake, determined to reclaim his fitness. He dragged himself out of bed for his routine early morning run. At 6 foot tall in his late 30s, Hughe had always been committed to staying in shape, though lately that battle had been slipping away from him. Today, he resolved, would be different. He stretched, feeling a few satisfying cracks as he loosened up. There was a minor twinge here and there, but nothing that would derail his plans. Clad in blue and white shorts paired with a matching blue tank top, he stepped out of his bedroom. The usual morning scent of his one-bedroom apartment greeted him, jasmine and mint from the hall plug-in, and a less pleasant aroma of last night's pizza box still sitting on the coffee table. Ugh, that smell, Hughe muttered. His voice graveled as he rubbed his throat. He wasn't going to let a bit of lingering pizza odor deter him. He grabbed his new running shoes and plopped down on the golden brown sofa, glancing around at the mess that had accumulated. It looked as if a tornado had swept through the place. What happened to my apartment after the card game last night? Hughe wondered out loud, surveying the disarray. Well, I'll tackle the cleanup when I get back. He reached for the door handle, but just as he was about to open it, a particular sound drifted in from the hallway. A trumpet blared somewhere in the distance, followed by a loud proclamation. Hear ye, hear ye! The king has declared that cows shall travel on the left side of the road, and goats on the right side. This is now law. Hughe blinked momentarily, stunned by the bizarre announcement. He shook his head, a bit amused smile creeping onto his face. Guess it's going to be one of those days, he said, shrugging as he stepped out into the morning air, ready to face whatever the day or the kingdom's new traffic laws might throw at him. As Hughe swung open the door, the bright morning sun dazzled him, making him squint. Just outside, a horse-drawn carriage, piled high with the fresh produce, trundled away. Mr. Smith, perched on top of the bounty, waved carefully. Good morning, Hughe, he called out, his voice carrying over the clatter of the cart wheels. Hughe waved back as Mr. Smith and stepped onto the wooden slatted walkway, ready to start his morning run. As he jogged past the bakery, the warm, inviting aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air. Rounding the corner, he spotted Mrs. Lakewood sitting on the porch. She shot him a staring glare as he passed, not uttering a word. Hughe wondered to himself, maybe she just can't talk. Hughe continued his jog, his thoughts drifting as he absorbed the comforting sense of the morning. The bakery's aroma was a welcome distraction from the residual pizza smell lingering in his apartment. He focused on his pace, determined to make the most of his run. As he made his way down the street, he passed familiar landmarks, the quaint little cafe where he sometimes grabbed his coffee, and the small park where children played. It was on this stretch of his route that he usually found solace, a chance to clear his head and push away the clutter of daily life. But today, Mrs. Lakewood's icy stare lingered in his mind. He had seen her around for years, an elderly woman with a reputation for being somewhat reclusive and unapproachable. Her glaring silence as he jogged by was unusual even for her. Hugh had always assumed she was simply stern and reserved, but he never seen her so overtly hostile. Maybe she's just having a bad day, he mused, trying to brush off the odd encounter. As he rounded another corner, he spotted a group of neighbors chatting intimately outside their homes. They greeted him with friendly waves and smiles, which helped ease his concern. With each step, he found his rhythm again, the morning air invigorating him. Hugh mentally prepared for the day ahead, focusing on his goals, both fitness related and otherwise. He promised himself he would tackle the mess at home and address the lingering question about Mrs. Lakewood's strange behavior. As he neared the end of his route, he felt a renewed sense of determination. The sun was climbing higher, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, and Hugh was ready to embrace whatever the day might bring, whether it involved particular royal decrees, mysterious neighbors, or the ongoing challenge of his fitness journey. With a final burst of energy, Hugh rounded the last corner of his route, the familiar sight of his apartment building coming into view. He slowed to a brisk walk, catching his breath and savoring the sense of accomplishment that came with completing his run. The morning sun was now fully up, casting a golden light that made the whole street look inviting and alive. As he approached his building, he noticed a few more neighbors out and about. Mrs. Conley from the second floor was watering her plants, and Mr. Thomas was reading the newspaper on his porch. They exchanged nods and smiles, and Hugh felt a renewed sense of community, which contrasted sharply with a frosty reception from Mrs. Lakewood. His phone buzzed with a message, interrupting his thoughts. It was a reminder from his fitness app, tracking his progress. He tapped the screen to dismiss it and mentally prepared for the cleanup awaiting him at home. The thought of facing the mess made him groan inwardly, but he resolved to tackle it head on. As he entered his apartment building, the familiar scent of jasmine and mint from the wall plug greeted him, a small comfort. He unlocked his door and stepped inside, taking a deep breath and embracing himself for the sight of disarray. The pizza box that toppled, books, and scattered game pieces from last night's card game greeted him. Before diving into the mess, he decided to make a quick breakfast. The thought of a hot cup of coffee and a nutritious meal was too tempting to ignore. He moved through his kitchen with purpose, brewing a pot of coffee and preparing a simple breakfast of yogurt and fruit. The rhythmic sounds of the coffee maker and the clink of utensils were oddly soothing amidst the chaos. As he ate, Hugh thought over the events of previous evenings. The card game had been lively, with plenty of laughter and good-natured ribbing. He remembered the competitive edge everyone brought to the table and a sense of partnership that followed. The aftermath, however, was less charming, a reminder of how even the simplest gatherings could leave a lasting impact on one's surroundings. Finishing his breakfast, Hugh felt a renewed sense of determination. He put on some upbeat music and set to work, methodically cleaning up the mess. The task, though not pleasant, gave him a sense of accomplishment as each area was restored to order. With the apartment tidied up, Hugh took a moment to admire his work. It It wasn't perfect, but it was livable. And for now, that was enough. He decided it was time to check on Mrs. Lakewood and see if there was a way to mend any unspoken tension. Perhaps a friendly gesture of a simple hello might break through her stony exterior. Stepping back outside, he saw Mrs. Lakewood still sitting on her porch. Though her expression had softened slightly, Hugh took a deep breath and approached her. "Good morning, Mrs. Lakewood," he said with a warm smile. "I hope you're having a good day." She looked up, her gaze searching his face. After a brief pause, she nodded cruelty. "Good morning, Hugh," she replied, her voice softer than he had expected. Encouraged by her response, Hugh continued, "If there's anything you need, or if there's something I can do, please let me know." Mrs. Lakewood's eyes seemed to soften further, and she gave a smile, appreciative nod. "Thank you, Hugh. I'll keep that in mind." With that, Hugh felt a sense of relief. He had reached out and thought the conversation was brief, but it also felt like a small victory. He turned to head back inside, ready to embrace the rest of the day with a renewed sense of optimism and connection.